perfection, discipline, beauty. It's an almost superhuman ideal that has conquered the globe. A multi-billion-dollar industry built on flawless visuals, razor-sharp synchronized performances, and a level of dedication that borders on the divine. We see it, we consume it, we're mesmerized by it. The global phenomenon of K-pop has completely reshaped modern pop culture and our standards for what a star can be. But what if I told you that the formula for the modern K-pop star wasn't invented in a Seoul boardroom in the 21st century? What if it was created 1,500 years ago by a band of teenage warrior poets famous for, among other things, wearing makeup into battle? This is the story of the Hwarang, the flowering youth of the ancient Korean kingdom of Silla. They were an elite group of aristocratic young men trained not just for war, but for art, for leadership, and for beauty. And in their code, their training, and their very existence, they created a cultural blueprint that resonates with astonishing clarity in the faces and performances of today's K-pop idols. This is the hidden history of the K-pop aesthetic, an ideal that isn't new at all, but is, in fact, ancient. To understand the scale of this ancient connection, we first have to acknowledge the revolution K-pop has unleashed on the world. Over the past 2 decades, what started as a regional music genre exploded into a global cultural force. Groups like BTS, Blackpink, EXO, and countless others haven't just sold out stadiums. They've become cultural ambassadors, economic powerhouses, and fixtures of international diplomacy. At their peak, groups like BTS were estimated to contribute over $4.5 billion to the South Korean economy annually, attracting a significant portion of the country's tourism. This isn't just pop music, it is a pillar of national identity and a key instrument of South Korea's global soft power. But what is it exactly that makes K-pop so magnetic? It's a meticulously crafted formula. At its core is the concept of the idol. An idol isn't merely a singer or a dancer. They are the total package. They are often selected at a young age by entertainment companies and plunged into a notoriously rigorous training system. For years, these trainees dedicate nearly every waking hour to perfecting their skills, singing, rapping, dancing in perfect synchronization, learning foreign languages, and mastering on-camera charisma. It is a system designed to produce not just performers, but paragons of discipline and dedication. And then there's the aesthetic. K-pop visuals are legendary for their polish and perfection. Every element is controlled, from the intricate concepts of their music videos to their hair color, their fashion, and their flawless complexions. This aesthetic, particularly for male idols, often embraces a form of soft masculinity, or what is commonly known as the flower boy look, a striking beauty that challenges traditional Western ideals of manhood. It's an aesthetic that prizes clear skin, delicate features, and an androgynous elegance that is both powerful and approachable. This combination of grueling discipline, aesthetic perfection, and a sense of collective purpose has created a new kind of star, one who is at once an artist, an athlete, a diplomat, and an object of intense admiration. They represent an ideal that seems impossibly modern. Yet to find its cultural origins, we need to travel back in time to a period of war, philosophy, and intrigue on the Korean peninsula. So how does an ancient warrior elite connect to a multi-billion-dollar music industry? To answer that, we have to journey back to the Silla kingdom. Our story begins in the turbulent era of the 3 kingdoms of Korea, which conventionally lasted from 57 BCE to 668 CE. The peninsula was divided between 3 rival powers, Goguryeo, Baekje, and Silla. It was a time of constant conflict and shifting alliances, a period where survival depended on military strength and a strong sense of identity. It was in the Silla kingdom during the 6th century CE that an institution, unlike any other, rose to prominence under state patronage, the Hwarang. The name itself is evocative, translating to flowering youth or flower boys. But these were not delicate flowers. They were being cultivated to become the future military and political leaders of the kingdom. The historical records that tell us about the Hwarang, primarily the Samguk Sagi and Samguk Yusa, describe a fascinating and multifaceted institution. They weren't simply a military academy. Think of them less as a standing army and more as an elite educational organization for Silla's best and brightest, drawn from the sons of high-ranking nobles. Their origins are somewhat murky, but their importance to the state, especially during the reign of King Jinhung, is clear. The training of a Hwarang was extraordinarily comprehensive, designed to cultivate mind, body, and spirit. Of course, there was martial training, archery, swordsmanship, and wrestling. They were expected to be brave warriors, ready to defend the kingdom, but this was only one part of their education. The historical chronicles tell us they were also deeply immersed in the arts and philosophy. They were taught to compose music, write poetry known as hyanga, and perform intricate dances. Their moral and philosophical education was a blend of the major beliefs of the time: Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism. They were guided by the 5 Secular Injunctions, a moral code established by the Buddhist monk Hwarang, which included principles like loyalty to the king, filial piety, trust among friends, and courage in battle. This holistic education aimed to produce men who were not just fierce, but also refined, intelligent, and morally upright. The organization was led by a single charismatic Hwarang who could lead a group of followers, or nangdo, that sometimes numbered in the hundreds. They would often gather in places of great natural beauty, like sacred mountains and rivers, to train, study, and perform. These weren't just scenic retreats, they were spiritual pilgrimages, reflecting a belief in drawing power and wisdom from nature. In essence, Silla created a system to identify and cultivate its most promising young men, molding them into the ultimate assets for the state. They were living symbols of the kingdom's strength and sophistication. And it's in the details of their ideals, their beliefs about beauty, their commitment to discipline, and their role as performers for the nation, that we find the ancient blueprint for the modern K-pop idol. The parallels between the Hwarang of ancient Silla and the idols of modern K-pop are not a direct line of descent, but they are deeply resonant, echoing across centuries of Korean cultural values. It's a shared cultural DNA. Let's break down the 3 core pillars of this ancient blueprint: beauty as a virtue, discipline as a foundation, and performance as a national duty. One of the most striking characteristics of the Hwarang mentioned in historical texts is their physical beauty. A Chinese official visiting Silla noted, "They choose fair sons from noble families and deck them out with cosmetics and fine clothes and call them Hwarang. The people all revere and serve them." But in Silla, this beauty wasn't seen as mere vanity. It was believed to be a reflection of inner virtue and a cultivated soul. This belief manifested in the Hwarang's famous use of cosmetics. While specific details are a mix of historical accounts and later interpretations, it's believed they wore face powder to achieve a pale, flawless complexion, often described as jade-like. They adorned themselves with fine clothes and accessories. Some modern scholars and later sources even suggest they may have used red eyeshadow, possibly derived from safflower, to distinguish themselves as an elite force. This was beauty with a purpose. For the Hwarang, making themselves up was a way of outwardly expressing their inner purity and dedication. Some scholars have linked the Hwarang to the worship of Maitreya, the future Buddha, who was sometimes depicted as a beautiful young man. In this interpretation, by beautifying themselves, the Hwarang were emulating a divine ideal, transforming into living symbols of the kingdom's highest values. It was a powerful statement. Our refinement is our strength. Now fast forward 1,500 years to a K-pop stage. The flower boy aesthetic is everywhere. Male idols are celebrated for their flawless skin, meticulously styled hair, and features that often challenge conventional masculine norms. The use of makeup is not just accepted, but expected, a core part of the performance and the persona. Just like with the Hwarang, this modern-day aesthetic isn't about weakness. It's a demonstration of immense discipline. An idol's appearance, their visual, is seen as a testament to their hard work and professionalism. A flawless complexion suggests a disciplined lifestyle. A daring hair color is part of a meticulously planned artistic concept. For many fans, this external perfection is a reflection of the idol's inner dedication. It's the modern echo of the Silla belief that outer beauty can reflect inner virtue. The Hwarang use their appearance to project power and purity. Today's idols use it to project artistry and discipline. The context has changed, but the principle remains startlingly similar. It's pretty wild to see how these ancient ideas about beauty and power are still so visible today. It really makes you think. So, I have a question for you. Who do you think is the modern equivalent of a Hwarang? It could be an idol, an artist, or anyone you feel embodies that unique blend of beauty, discipline, and purpose. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you're finding this hidden history as fascinating as I do, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. If beauty was the visible expression of the Hwarang ideal, then relentless discipline was its foundation. A Hwarang was forged, not born. Their education was designed to create a whole person, a leader who was as skilled with the sword as he was with a poem. Their training regimen was intense. The martial aspect was crucial. They practiced hand-to-hand combat, archery, and strategic warfare. But their days were not just filled with sparring. They underwent serious intellectual and artistic development, studying philosophy and mastering music, singing, and dancing, which were considered essential for performing state rituals. This wasn't about learning separate skills. It was about integrating them into a single identity. The goal was to create a warrior intellectual, a man whose physical prowess was balanced by cultural refinement and moral integrity. Now consider the life of a modern K-pop trainee. The parallel is uncanny. Young hopefuls enter a training system legendary for its intensity. While it varies by company, many trainees face grueling schedules of lessons that mirror the Hwarang's holistic approach, sometimes training for over 10 hours a day. There is, of course, the artistic training, hours of vocal lessons, rap workshops, and endless dance practice to achieve the perfect synchronization K-pop is famous for. But like the Hwarang, their education goes far beyond their primary craft. They take acting classes, learn multiple languages to communicate with a global fan base, and are given media training to handle interviews with professional poise. Many are also put on strict diets and fitness regimens. The goal is the same, to create a perfectly polished, multi-talented individual. Just as the Hwarang were trained to be the total package for the Silla state, K-pop trainees are molded into the total package for a global entertainment market. The intense, comprehensive discipline that forged a Hwarang 1,500 years ago is mirrored in the training centers of modern Seoul, both systems dedicated to the singular goal of manufacturing perfection. The final and perhaps most profound connection lies in their function as performers who serve a national purpose. The Hwarang were not just a reserve of elite soldiers, they were cultural performers. The Samguk Yusa notes that they would meet to sing and dance as part of their training and public function. They composed and performed Hwarang, a form of native Korean poetry set to music. These were not performances for mere entertainment. They were acts of national service. By singing songs of loyalty and bravery, and by embodying the ideals of refinement and strength, the Hwarang inspired the people and built a collective Silla identity. They were charismatic figures whose very presence reinforced the virtue of the state that produced them. This concept of the performer as a national asset has been reborn in the 21st century through K-pop. The South Korean government has strategically embraced K-pop as a primary tool of soft power, a way to project cultural influence and build a positive national brand on the global stage. The Korean wave, or Hallyu, has been actively supported by government bodies, although much of its growth is driven by private entertainment companies and market forces. K-pop idols are, in this sense, modern cultural diplomats. When a group like BTS speaks at the UN or performs at a diplomatic event, they are representatives of South Korea. Their global popularity fosters goodwill, drives tourism, boosts the economy, and presents a dynamic image of the nation to the world. The Hwarang performed songs to inspire Silla's citizens. K-pop idols perform for millions of global fans, creating a powerful and positive association with the name Korea. The Hwarang embodied an ideal of Silla excellence. K-pop idols embody an ideal of modern Korean creativity and discipline. In both eras, the performer is more than an entertainer. They are a symbol, an ambassador, and a vital asset in the service of the nation. So, did the Hwarang invent the K-pop aesthetic? Not literally. There's no ancient manuscript with 7th century choreography. The modern K-pop industry is a product of 20th century economic policy, globalization, and digital technology. But history doesn't always work in straight lines. Sometimes it rhymes. The Hwarang of Silla did not create K-pop, but they reveal a deep and enduring Korean cultural tradition, one that fuses beauty with power, discipline with art, and performance with national purpose. They established a powerful archetype, the flower youth, a polished, highly trained, and beautiful young person, cultivated to represent the highest ideals of the collective. They proved that a face made up for battle wasn't a contradiction, but a statement of spiritual strength. They showed that training in poetry and dance wasn't a distraction from duty, but an essential part of it. When we look at a K-pop idol today, with their flawless visuals, razor-sharp performance, and their role as a global cultural ambassador, we aren't seeing a completely new phenomenon. We are seeing a modern manifestation of an ancient ideal. The kingdom has been replaced by the entertainment company, the battlefield by the global stage, and service to the king by service to a global fan base and a national brand. But the core components are all there. The spirit of the Hwarang, the flowering youth of Silla, is alive and well, dancing under the stadium lights, its echo resonating 1,500 years later in the heart of the Korean wave.